Hello there, I'm Margaret, but this story is not about me. It's about my good friend Sarah, who's also my neighbor. She seemed to be missing for some time, and recently, I finally found out where she was. It appeared that her parents locked her in their own house, and they made her live in terrible conditions. I saw through binoculars that she was sleeping in some awful box. Can you imagine that a girl is spending the whole night in a box? I never would have thought that that could be true. We called the police several times, but her family was pretending that everything was okay. And Sarah was so afraid of her parents that she played along with them. Every time, the police would come back with nothing, and Sarah returns to her box. Then she's wandering around the house crying and texting on the internet that she's fine. It seems to me that fine is not the most appropriate word for living in a box. It's even weirder because Sarah has a suspicious and beautiful room, which is even bigger than mine. When we hung out, I used to come to her place all the time, so I know that for sure. That's the reason why I don't believe in those lies that her parents keep telling the police and social services. They say that Sarah has mental issues, and they even summoned some psychologists for her. It's strange because we used to be friends from early childhood, and she was sane. She was completely normal. Yes, she'd never been a fan of communication with other children, although she hung out with one other girl and me. Sarah was an introvert as a child, but she was absolutely normal. I also didn't like it when her relatives came to our house, and my parents made me kiss their cheeks. It was awful, especially when I was forced to kiss my old granny. We were friends with Sarah. We used to laugh, hang out, and go to school together. She was active during classes, and she loved studying. I didn't see anything weird in her behavior. She was an ordinary girl who even attended different after-school activities like volleyball or glee club. Sarah was a funny and interesting girl. There was one unpleasant moment when someone attacked her. I don't know any specific details, but it was rather serious because our parents didn't allow us to leave the house for a month after that. The criminal was not found, but I knew that Sarah felt well. It was just a street robbery, which happens often here, although usually the victims are adults. I don't believe that one robbery could turn a girl who's so cool into a psycho. It's impossible. But her parents locked Sarah in the house and didn't let her out. She even started homeschooling because of that. After some time, I saw that box in her room. I often observed Sarah getting inside and sitting there till morning or even longer. She was crying and sleeping in there. It seems that her parents forbade Sarah to use her bed for that. Of course, I told my parents about it, and they called the police right away. But my friend remained imprisoned. No matter what we did, she still is. Although we're chatting on the internet once in a while, and she says everything is fine. But I don't believe her. I don't know what can be done about all that. We tried everything except abduction because it was kind of absurd. But now it seems like a good idea for me. We should just kidnap Sarah and take her as far as possible from her crazy parents. Surely we can't do that because of the law, but I want to save her so much.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I live in a box. The box is so cozy and useful, it stands in our house and doesn't bother anyone, but other people don't believe me. Yeah, you got it right. I really live in a big refrigerator box. I know, it sounds creepy, but it's actually really nice. Still, it is true, and I wouldn't want to lie to you. But nothing terrible goes on in our house. Although our neighbors don't think so. The box is situated on the second floor in my absolutely normal bedroom. It's just an ordinary room with a bed, some toys, a desk, and other stuff that kids usually have. Often I sleep in my bed. I do my homework at the desk, I play video games, and sometimes I even talk to other people. I know, shocking. But I do rarely leave the house. I've stayed home as much as possible over the last 3 years. My parents would have been very happy if it was the other way around. They spend a lot of money on doctors and therapists, but still, nothing helps. The rumor about my imprisonment doesn't do a lot of good either. To be honest, I really do have some issues. I get panic attacks, you see. They are creepy and sudden, and I'm so desperate during them that it feels like I could just die. I don't know who investigated these issues or what they found, but as a person who often experiences them, I'm pretty sure that my heart stops when I have a panic attack. And because of them, I can't talk to anyone. I can't even come out of my room because it causes the next attack. Although I do chat with people online, so it's not all bad. But to be honest, I miss meeting with my friends a lot. I have always been a loner. It was easier for me to just be alone. Then that incident with the robbery happened. I just went out shopping, and I didn't have a care in the world. I wasn't expecting to get mugged. I was already 13, and the store wasn't far from the house. What could possibly go wrong? It was a rather strange decision for that man to steal from a kid who only has ice cream instead of choosing a wealthy grown-up. Still, he attacked me. He took my bag and pushed me so hard that I fell on the ground and lost consciousness. I was lying there for 2 hours. Nobody helped a little unconscious girl lying on the ground for 2 hours. That's why I'm so angry about all these caring people who say they're just trying to help me. Because at the time when I was lying there, when I needed them, everybody just walked by. So why should they care now? It was my mom who found me. She was worried about me because usually I never go out for so long. At first she thought that maybe I just met my friend and we were chit-chatting around the corner. But figured it might be better to check in, and it's a good thing she did, because she found me lying unconscious on the ground. Luckily, nothing terrible happened to me. I did get several bruises and a nasty bump on my head, but that's it. Even laying on the ground for 2 hours straight didn't affect my health in any way. I didn't even catch a cold. Physically, I felt completely fine, but my mental health was really damaged. I didn't leave the house from that time, knowing that something like that could repeat itself. Also, I started to lose consciousness often and have panic attacks. The feeling of safety within my house helped me to calm down a little bit. Although I knew it still wasn't safe enough. My panic attacks didn't go away and eventually got worse. Then a box appeared. Once I was so desperate that I just got into it to feel safer, and it helped me. Slowly my anxiety faded. I calmed down and I fell asleep in the box. My father was going to throw the box in the garage until he found me inside. I asked my parents to leave it, please, and if I could use it. They agreed, but found another one which was bigger and tighter. A refrigerator box fit the best and had enough free space. I put some blankets and some chocolate and even a bottle of water inside. Now I have a place where I can go through all my stressful moments. It's far less expensive than a therapist and honestly helps me better. Although our neighbors think that they can meddle in my life, I told them a million times that I'm fine and my parents don't torture me, but of course they don't lock me in or take food from me. I live in this box because I have mental issues. Some people are hiding in their wardrobe or under their beds, and I choose a box. Is that such a big deal? As a matter of fact, all those police calls made my life even harder. My parents were trying to prove that I was ill and that I was having panic attacks all the time, but still, the police were obliged to come and check that everything was fine in case there was a child being tortured by their parents. Dear neighbors, please, just go burn in it. I can't say that. So, dear neighbors, please don't meddle in my life. Vigilance is a good thing, sure, but it's a little late for that, don't you think? Why didn't you prove your civic awareness earlier? Now I have to help myself in my own way because you refuse to. And please stay as far away from my house as possible. I should say that help is a good thing if only one really needs it. As for me, it's not that hard to identify the real victim of domestic violence. Hey, I'm Victoria, and according to lots of people, I feel no shame. Well, they're not wrong. I'm not ashamed of anything, and I don't think I ever should be. They told me that I should have at least felt embarrassed when I entered the boys' locker room at school that day. Apparently, my face wasn't red and I wasn't gasping, so they immediately assumed that I was just a shameless creature. Nobody actually realized that I had a very valid reason to do what I did. That's why I've never felt ashamed of any of it. The boys were screaming, the teachers were screaming. Someone even tried to push me out of the locker room. The whole school condemned me. But I knew that I was right, and I wasn't afraid or ashamed or anything like that. Later on, friends told me that my stone face was the most alarming sign for other people. Well, as I've already told you, I had a very valid reason to enter the locker room. You see, it was the first year of our middle school, and a new girl got transferred into our class. All the other kids immediately made her the outcast and turned into practically literal animals hunting her, bullying her. They called it testing her strength. Yeah, whatever. Apparently, the boys had a lot of fun playing football with her bag, or hiding her clothes, or dumping her bag on the school's rooftop. Again and again, I told them that what they were doing was wrong, and even fought them from time to time. Still, I was all alone, and they were many. Honestly, the girl wasn't that important to me. I just don't like bullying. I'm all in for a fair challenge, but when it's an entire pack of howling school children is hunting one girl, that's the opposite of a fair fight. The day of the locker room incident was our swimming day. One of our PE lessons each week is a compulsory swimming lesson. The locker rooms are situated as far from the pool as possible, which is stupid, which means that the students have to move through the whole school before dressing or undressing. The new girl always tried to be the first one to return to the locker room after lesson, but that day she didn't manage it, and the girls threw all of her clothes, including her underwear, to the boys' locker room. The boys were idiots. They immediately started trying on the clothes and even taking photos. Ugh, disgusting. So I decided it was time to right a wrong. And somehow I ended up being the one to blame. The boys yelled that the girls shouldn't enter their locker room. The girls told me that I should feel ashamed to even think about entering some place like that. Isn't that funny? They were perfectly okay stealing somebody's belongings, yet it was I who must have felt ashamed. So at the end of the day, that's how I earned a visit to a therapist. The school's therapist told me that I was all wrong. She told me that I should feel more emotions and that I made a lot of mistakes. Well, I never agreed to that nonsense. Why should I ever feel shame? After all, it wasn't me who did those things. I sincerely believe that bad things are stealing, bullying, and cheating, and I've never done that. Well, yes, granted, I do a lot of weird stuff, but nothing that bad. For example, once I ended up singing songs while standing in a garbage can. You see, there was a bet which I had lost, perfectly reasonable, and so I had to stand singing in that can for a certain amount of time. Weird, yes, but not shameful. And besides that, there was another story that seemed unusual to the therapist. Though I'm pretty sure I did everything right that time, too. Even my parents agree. It all started when our PE teacher got real sloppy. There's a small, shallow lake near our school. Honestly, it's more like a glorified pond. You can't drown there even if you really wanted to. And in the winter, the lake freezes over, and sometimes we're even allowed to skate there. If our PE teacher allows us to do so, that is. That year was pretty warm, and the lake didn't actually manage to freeze over properly. When all of us rushed into the ice, it immediately broke. The majority of the kids managed to get away in time, yet some of us got soaking wet, me included. They immediately called the ambulance, and the EMSs got us out of the lake. No one was afraid that we'd drown, of course, but it was really cold outside, and those of us who got wet might have fallen ill. Most of my classmates got pretty sick. Some got a simple cold, others had bronchitis, and one even got pneumonia. I was the only one who remained perfectly healthy due to paying attention in health class. Our teacher told us that in such cases, a person who got wet should immediately get rid of wet clothes, rub him or herself, and wrap his or herself in a warm blanket. The medics gave us the blankets, and I did the rubbing myself. It never crossed my mind that by doing so, I would appear nude in front of strangers. At that moment, I only cared about saving my health, but the adults deemed my action as horribly immoral. Apparently, a girl should be really shy and never undress in front of strangers, even when her life is at stake. No, sorry, I don't think so. I've never understood that logic. It's idiotic. Though I've never cared enough to argue that point with those adults. Let them think like the cavemen that they are for all I care. It's not my job to change their minds. Apparently, they decided that something was obviously wrong with my psyche and told my mom a lot of horrible things about me. Well, whatever. I still don't think that I was wrong or anything. Now my health card says that I'm a psychopath, albeit in a mild form. The medics think that I'm physically unable to feel not only shame, but also sympathy and many other things. As for me, I think they're just coddling themselves by diagnosing me this way. They don't like that someone doesn't value what they do and dare challenge them on it.
Hi all, I'm Mary, Virginia's friend. Well, she thinks that I'm her friend anyway. Unfortunately, I don't really have much of a choice. Earlier, I really didn't know what a sociopath looked like. I always imagined them as characters from horror movies as asylum patients, emotionless creatures, more robots than humans, doing good and bad things with the same frozen smile on their lips. Well, that was so very wrong. You'd never notice a sociopath in a crowd unless you know a person to be one. They are excellent at pretending to be normal humans and always have some peerless logical excuse to any of their weird actions. I know that because I've known Virginia for a very long time. We became acquainted in the preparatory class. She just came straight to me, introduced herself, and told me that she's going to be my friend. I just carelessly agreed to that and asked her to sit down and don't interrupt the teacher. Oh, a grave mistake on my part. Well, at first, I just thought that Virginia was a fearless and really cool girl. She was never afraid of boys and dogs, was always ready to protect both of us, and once even drove off an adult guy who was trying to lure us into the woods. When I was just a kid, I really enjoyed being under her protection. But with age, I realized that Virginia wasn't just brave. Often her decisions seemed just straight up crazy. Small kids shouldn't do such things. When my friend was just an 8-year-old girl, she once saw some homeless men pick up someone's wallet. My friend just ran straight up to them and wrestled the wallet out of their hands. You see that there was no one else on the street, just the two of us and those men. Her decision was really dangerous. Virginia was always prone to impossibly reckless actions. She could easily enter the boys' locker room, get naked in front of a bunch of strangers, or tell the teacher in public that he smelled bad. And besides, she was always able to justify her actions using her insane troll logic. I felt in danger just being near her, but still was too afraid to run away or disobey her. Eventually, I told Virginia that we shouldn't be friends anymore. I told her that I was unable to be her friend. I too was shocked, horrified, and afraid to participate in her endless escapades. I just wanted a normal life with normal acquaintances, not a roller coaster of a friendship. You know how she reacted to that? She didn't. It was as if she never actually heard my words at all. Again and again, she dragged me into her brainless adventures, and again I participated in those escapades out of sheer fear. Well, yeah, I was afraid of leaving her. Since then, I tried dumping our friendship many times. Yet Virginia was always able to find me, drag me out of my hideout, and pull me into another horrible adventure. I wanted nothing of that. She intervened into fights between strangers, went to someone else's yard just to play with their cute dog, and of course, took part in various crazy bets. She was just plain nuts. Still, worst thing is that everybody considered me to be as crazy as Virginia. After all, I was known as her best friend. Therefore, people concluded that I was as crazy and insane as her. I never wanted such a reputation, that's for sure. Well, unfortunately, I'd never be able to make myself a new name as long as I hang out with Virginia. Well, soon, that horrible friendship will finally be over. My parents and I are moving into another city. I'd be transferred to a new school where no one knows about Virginia and her mad ideas.
Howdy, I'm Nancy, and recently I learned that you can't just trust people, any people, at all. You see, even those who appear to like you can plot something sinister and laugh behind your back. My story started when I got invited to study at the most prestigious school in our city. That school doesn't usually take in students from outside. It caters to the rich and wealthy, and people there have to pay a fortune for their kids to be allowed to study. However, the teachers are professionals of the highest caliber. Besides, the school alumni are allowed to enter practically any state university without exams. And I was just a girl from a trailer park. I've studied in public schools all my life and was never considered a star pupil, despite being quite diligent. I just wasn't all that smart. Besides, my mom and I never had much money to begin with. Sometimes we barely had enough to buy groceries. I've got the very best mom in the whole world. She's just kinda unlucky in life, but she works a lot and she devotes all her strength to making my future brighter, even if just a little bit. So, when the officials from the super school hired her as a janitor, she considered herself blessed because Mom's new job was actually really good for my future. School employees were allowed to get their own kids enlisted in that school free of charge. That's how me, a janitor's daughter, came to study at the very best school in the whole state. It felt like a dream come true. At first, Mom and I were super happy. With such an education, I'd be able to enter any university. Marvelous. Of course, there already was one problem. I was quite afraid of my new classmates, you see. I was worried that they definitely hate me and immediately start bullying me for being a classless upstart or some such hogwash. Still, I was ready to endure anything for that bright future. It's a good thing that I went because it turned out I was wrong. I guess rich kids are no different than actual kids from poor families. Nobody bullied me, nobody hated me, they just kind of ignored me altogether at first. I wasn't really offended, though. Kids in any school do a lot of watching at first when they get a new classmate. Besides, I looked and honestly sounded so different from all of them. I've got old clothes, a funny voice, patched shoes, Mom's old bag, nothing nice and fancy. I clearly looked out of their league. But then a miracle happened. I had just gotten used to being an outcast and all, but those rich kids appeared to be actually kind of cool. Some of them started talking to me as an equal. First, it was the girls, and then the boys welcomed me into the fold. They helped me get comfortable at school. 2 of the girls actually tutored me, and my classmates even gave me free rides home. Though I didn't tell them my real address. I told them to drive to the house closest to the trailer park, but still, it was great. With time, more and more miracles happened. Those 2 girls I became really close friends with, and they even started gifting me their clothes. At first, I was embarrassed. I thought maybe they were mocking me. But they soon persuaded me that they didn't need these clothes anyway. The boots that didn't fit, the coats that weren't fancy enough, that sort of thing. They gave me jackets, boots, dresses, even several sets of the school uniform. Well, at first, I expected some sort of trick. Yet, they actually managed to convince me that they were sincere. You see, all those clothes and boots weren't actually new. Some of them were a bit shabby or blotchy. Rich fashionista girls considered them irreparable. But hey, for me it was an easy fix, and I was happy to wear it. The guys gave me some presents as well. Of course, they never gave me, like, clothes or beauty products or whatever. Instead, they clubbed together and bought me a high-end phone, a laptop for studies, and some other accessories like headphones and stuff. The girls taught me how to wear makeup, gave me an opportunity to try many various hairstyles, even invited me to a pajama party where the mother of one of the girls dyed my hair ash blonde and gave me a really cool new haircut. Later on, I found out that mom was actually a fashionable stylist who only worked with stars and was regularly employed in Hollywood. My life became glorious. I could have never imagined it to turn out that great. Of course, Mom warned me not to be too charmed by my new friends. But, how could I help it? Well, sooner or later, every fairy tale has to end. On this particular day, I came to school a bit earlier than usual. Mom and I normally do that because we come to school by bus, so I was usually the first kid to enter the classroom. Typically, I was there about a half hour before the start of the lesson. I often did that time to review work or go over homework or that sort of stuff. But that time, I decided to help Mom by watering the flowers. So when the girls came to class, I was busy watering the pots behind a closet, effectively hidden from their sight, so they didn't hear me when I heard them enter the classroom. And at first I wanted to greet them, but was stopped dead in my tracks when I heard what they were talking about. I heard my name come up. They didn't see me and thought that I was absent, and they were actually happy that the nightmare girl skipped school. They were calling me names and insulting me. I was so shocked that I couldn't even move, and they continued with their incoherent ramblings. It turned out that my so-called friends considered me a boogeyman, boogie woman, whatever, of the class. According to them, I was an ugly, clumsy, foul-looking monster of a girl, and even makeup and nice clothes made no difference. They were sure that I was the shame of the class. Turns out that they played the role of my friend so that I couldn't embarrass them anymore, and that they were purposefully working to keep me silent. I couldn't really listen to those cruel words anymore and ran away in tears. I cried in that closet for hours. I'm not too proud of that. And then Mom came and took me home. That very evening, I begged Mom to move me to another school. I never, ever return to that horrible super school. Even now, when I don't feel all that pain anymore, I still can't understand their reasons. I truly believed us to be friends, and they turned out to be nothing more than a group of malevolent assholes.
Hi all, I'm Barbara, the same rich beauty who, according to the cries of our janitor, ruined Nancy's life. Pfft, that Nancy. My parents always told me that the rich were rich and the poor were poor for a reason, and used to think that all men are equal. I thought so until I met Nancy. When Nancy got transferred to our class, all of us were shocked. You see, we were all somehow acquainted since our very childhood. All of the pupils in our school, from the first graders to the almost alumni. And she looked and smelled. And she looked and smelled as a literal alien to us. It totally isn't an exaggeration. She really was so weird. Makeup today is affordable even for the most poor. And if it isn't, then a sewing needle definitely is. Nancy's clothes were full of holes. She wore zero makeup, she clearly didn't have her head washed for weeks, and she smelled. Our class soon became the laughingstock of the whole school. Still, we tried our best to turn our nightmare girl into a normal-looking creature. I actually never liked her, but Mom always told me that real ladies shouldn't instantly make up their minds. They should weigh out all the pros and cons first. So we tried. Some of us thought that Nancy should have been at least smart if she was unkempt and ugly. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't the case. She studied diligently, yet she read no books and wasn't interested in any extra knowledge. She was a literal zero, a nobody, and an ugly one at that. The girls of our class, me included, decided to help the nightmare girl. We tried to teach her how to dress better, teach her style and makeup. We even gifted her with clothes and cosmetics of our own. Our parents encouraged our efforts. Yet my mom told me not to be too hopeful. Well, Mom was right. Our little nightmare never actually changed. She wore new clothes and new makeup, but somehow remained the same old nightmare, based, ugly, and stupid. All the school was laughing at us. So finally there came the moment when we stopped caring altogether. We gave up and made Nancy the clown everybody was calling her to be. Funny thing is, she was all for it, and we were surprised by that. She saw how we looked. She read all the fashion magazines. She listened to our advice for many months. And still, she was sure that jeans together with a skirt was an okay move, and that she would look good with blue lashes. Was that some exquisite stupidity? Was that some extremely bad taste? I don't know. And then the day came when she learned about everything. Her face looked horrific. We even thought that she was going to take her revenge at us. Well, she didn't, and that was the end of the story. The nightmare girl finally understood that she didn't belong here and moved to another school all on her own accord. And we were free to live a normal life once again. All in all, that's what a happy ending looks like in